Evening, everybody. I'd like to call a city council meeting for November 19th, 2019 to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Bringold. Here. Duncan.
Here.
Gesme.
Here.
Lindell.
Here.
Mattson.
Here.
Montgomery.
Here.
And Mayor Altoff.
Here. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Mary Jill and a second by Derek to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we go to we have a public hearing tonight. I'd like to call a public hearing to order. Linnell, you want to tell us about Resolution 2449?
Thank you, Mayor. The city has the authority to assess for unpaid utility bills, and it has been our practice that we do this on a quarterly basis. Notices are sent to the property owner and to the resident of the delinquent account, and this is their opportunity to come forward and speak before those assessments could be adopted.
Okay, is there a motion to approve Resolution 2449?
You have to have a
Public input. Sorry about that. Any public input on Resolution 2449?
Yeah, Adam Peters. Do you have a number of how many people are delinquent? Or no?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, what I was gonna ask is, I think we need to go to, add a disconnection and reconnection fee if they go any longer than 3 or 4 months late. There's no reason that anyone should be that late on a water bill.
I count 41.
Okay.
40 or 41.
Well, I'm just saying maybe with this resolution, we can maybe add in or something the other day, add in a reconnection and, a water shut off if they're not gonna pay their bill on time. Thank you.
Mayor, may I comment on that?
Sure.
I know the city has talked about disconnection in the past, and we actually do disconnect commercial and industrial accounts that are delinquent, but we've taken the position not to do that in residential accounts. So that's something that should probably be discussed with the Public Works Commission if they want to pursue that or change their mind on the policy and practice that we have in place.
I agree with that. I think we're getting it through their taxes. I mean, if we can change that policy down the road, but I think we agreed on that a while back to do it this way. So, is there any other discussion? Any other input from the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing and take a motion to approve Resolution 2449.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Stephen, a second by Morris to approve Resolution 2449, certifying unpaid utility bill charges to be collected with taxes. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, we go to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items may be adopted under one motion as presented, or may be removed for discussion and resolution as council business. For you in the audience at home, I'll go through the consent agenda. Item A, just and correct claims for the accounting period ending November 15th, 2019. Item B, minute meetings for the November 6th, 2019 City Council meeting. Item C, minute meetings for the November 6th, 2019 City Council work session. Item D, minute meetings for the November 13th, 2019 City Council Work Session. And item E, minute meetings for the November 13th, 2019 City Council Special Session. Is there anything the council would like to pull down? Nothing? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion by Morris, a second by Mary Jill to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We'll move on to council business. Item A, approve a solar garden subscription agreement. Dave, could you update us on that?
Yeah, so just give an update to the council following our consideration recently of 3 different solar garden proposals, solar subscription proposals for the city of Cannon Falls. Done some follow-up work, both in terms of the legal review of the subscription agreements themselves, as well as taking a closer look at some of the details for both Novel Energy Systems and Nokomis Partners. And as you heard and as you know, both of the financial proposals from those 2 companies were pretty close. And there's a couple of distinctions that each one of them made in terms of developing and quantifying their dollar amount. But as it turned out, Novel was slightly higher than Nokomis Partners in terms of their overall 25-year future value savings to the city. So I find that as a plus, obviously, for Novel. As we looked at the contracts and with the input from our legal counsel, I sent those comments back to both companies. We worked through the language. Both of them accepted change of terms in the respective contracts to meet the legal requirements and the recommendations of the city attorney. So there was nothing there in terms of the subscription agreements that differentiated between the 2 proposals. So that was good. The final thing that we looked at and we heard about from all 3 of the proposers was related to the term of these agreements. And typically they are 25-year long terms, because what happens here is the providers, Nokomis, Novel, they build and finance the solar gardens, they make the investment, and typically the financing is long-term for the provider of these gardens. So naturally you would expect a long-term commitment back to us as kind of the tenant, the benefactor of their investment. So what I've learned is that Novel is really the exception, not the rule, in terms of what they offer to have a term of less than 25 years. And they're somewhat unique in that regard. And as I did more research with both Novel and Nokomis, it was clear that Nokomis was not in a position to change from their 25-year term, so that left Novel. And I think in looking at other subscription agreements, talking to other folks who have used agreements of this type, talking to some independent third parties, the opportunity to have a 10 to 12-year out in a contract like this could prove to be beneficial in the future. But my forecast is no better than anyone else's. But what we do know is that technology is going to continue to change, and advancements in renewable energy will continue to be in front of all of us. And what if in 10 to 12 years down the road, there's a better opportunity out there than what we're seeing today? It might be good to have the option to opt out of an agreement at that point in time. So my feeling is that that's a pretty significant advantage. It's somewhat unique in the industry. We may or may not ever use it if you decide to go ahead with Novel Energy, but I think it would be an opportunity for us in the event that conditions did change and other opportunities would arise at that point. I think that is a pretty important point for them. The final thing that we looked at, if we go back to last week when we talked about Sandstone Ridge and the multi-county HRA and Goodhue County, there was some conversation about potential solar energy becoming part of a future redevelopment plan for Sandstone. I came across Novel Energy because they had been working with the multi-county HRA and Goodhue County specifically related to the Sandstone Ridge property. So they're a company that has not only an interest in developing more solar, before they came and made a presentation and proposal here, they already were familiar with Cannon Falls because of the relationship with Sandstone. And I think that is important. I think that the type of company that they are, the type of investments and developments that they've produced, that may very well be another another opportunity that they could fill in the future as we go together with the county HRA and Goodhue County to address these issues at Sandstone. So with that said, I'm leaning towards recommending Novel in this case. I think they're certainly a company that's proven themselves in the marketplace. They have a strong financial proposal to the city. They're familiar with the community, and to have an option of a 10 to 12-year out clause, which we don't have with Nokomis Partners, I think is an advantage worth pursuing. So my recommendation with council consent is to proceed with working out details with Novel and seeing if we can get a subscription agreement signed up and start realizing some savings on energy.
Any discussion by the council? I've been on this since day one, and I think both companies are good, but I think it's unique with Novel in this case with that opt-out provision. No discussion. Somebody make a motion to go with Novel Energy?
I'll make a motion that we pursue an agreement with Novel Energy.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Derek and a second by Mary Jill that we sign a subscription agreement with Novel Energy on our solar gardens. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, item B, approve a pay estimate number 4, the final for Alexander Court. Hey, Greg.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Been a few meetings since I've been here. Alexander Court, the street, the cul-de-sac out by Grand Stay, is a project that most of the work was done in 2017, but we finally this fall, late summer, got final numbers together with the contractor and got it ready to approve. There's a fair amount of closeout paperwork that he has to do, and he got all that in. Speaking with Dave, we wanted to get this on a meeting agenda that I would be at in case there was any questions, because this is the final one, and that's tonight. So this is the final pay app number 4. He's included all of his closeout paperwork, includes his lien waivers and consent to surety and stuff all that. So Dave has all that. This would start the warranty, the 1-year warranty period, which starts on final payment. This pay app, if you look at page 4, we're about $6,100 over the bid price. That was, if you remember, before we started the project, a good share of that alignment to the road was wooded. When we got the trees out of there and started building the road, the existing ground was a little lower than what we had planned because we couldn't survey where the trees were. Unit price contract, you've got the ability in there to add or deduct from the units, and that's where the extra work is in there. The road looks good. I haven't seen any issues with it. It rides fine and drains well. And so I'm looking for approval of pay app number 4 here to Rochester Sand and Gravel.
Any questions for Greg? How about a motion to approve the pay estimate number 4, the final payment for Alexander Court?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second by Steve. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item C, approve appointment for a maintenance 2 position. Wes.
Staff and Mayor Altoff, we interviewed 7 candidates. We actually had 8, but 1 actually took a position. So we interviewed 7 candidates, and we picked 3 of the top candidates to come down to take a tour of the wastewater treatment facility and kind of get a one-on-one feel for each candidate. And we proposed to hire Joseph Savoy at pay grade 8, step 5, which is at the middle of the road. Joseph has lots of heavy equipment and operation experience. He seemed very eager to learn once he's seen the whole plan. So, yeah, that's my recommendation as far as a hire for maintenance too. It's been since March, so.
How's he feel about plowing snow?
He has plowed snow and loaders, big trucks, pickup trucks. He's very experienced with heavy equipment. He actually does all the wood grinding and stuff for the city.
Oh,
So he's very, very familiar with heavy equipment and maintenance and stuff like that. So
Now he's gonna know the wastewater plant.
now he's got to learn the wastewater side of it, which is,
I was in on this process from the beginning, and I thought we had some excellent candidates here.
We did.
We had, like you say, 8 candidates, and 3 or 4 of them were very good candidates. And I appreciate you stepping up and giving them a tour, and you're gonna get a little better handle on each one, and I like your recommendation too, so.
Okay.
Any questions for Wes? I entertain a motion to approve Joe as for the maintenance 2 position.
so moved.
Second.
Second by Mary Jo. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Was the motion Morris and second was Mary Jo?
Second, yeah,
There you
second Mary Jo. Okay, item D, Resolution 2450, approving a cooperative snow removal agreement with MnDOT. Wes?
so when I got this agreement from MnDOT, the Metro District, I looked at the price of $165 an hour, and that caught my eye right away. And talking with Tony, the streets and parks supervisor, and Dave, we just decided to dig a little bit deeper. I looked back at previous agreements with MnDOT, and it's always been $165 an hour. So we're running either a payloader or a grader, ag tractor with a positive or a PTO-driven blower, and a skid loader to load snow. $165 to run them 3 pieces of equipment, plus an operator, seemed very low to me. So we reached out to MnDOT and asked them what's all covered, or what's reimbursable. Is the loader reimbursable? Is all the equipment reimbursable that we use? And come to find out, we hadn't been charging for the loader or the grader or a skid loader.
Wow. That's gonna make a
So
difference.
we got some rates from MnDOT, which is a 2020 equipment rates. And then I added our hourly wage of our average public works employee, plus a little bit for fuel. That's where I came up with the dollar amount here. And then I wanted to meet with, so what we've done in the past, or what the agreement said was we would do from 4th Street, or from Main Street on 4th Street to Hoffman Street, which is the Fire Hall Road. Well, we're going all the way down almost to River Road at $165 an hour. That seemed, so I met with staff from MnDOT, and so what do you guys want us to do? Well, their big concern is their bridges. And for them to send a crew out to clean the bridges is pretty expensive. So I put together this for you guys to approve, and then that gets sent to MnDOT. And then they can look it over and approve it. And that's where we're going with this one. We still do have another agreement with District 6, which is Owatonna, which does 19 from 3rd, they said 5th Street, which is pretty much the bike trailhead, but we do all the way to 7th Street. So they sent us a new agreement back. What they're looking at is like $2,400 a year. It's costing us $500 an hour to run this. It's, me and Dave have to kind of work with District 6 and kind of reach out and say, why is your agreement so different than Metro's agreement? Why is it hourly compared to mileage? So just keep that in mind. That one's probably coming next council meeting.
Okay.
So hopefully we can get some better answers on that. But this is agreement we've done for the 12 years I've been here, so, but I just wanted to update the pricing so we get reimbursed for our time.
Right. And so this doesn't include the bridge over the Cannon River on Main Street, correct?
No,
That's
this,
us.
yep. This is only for 4th Street.
Okay.
It's not
So-
19. So this is Metro District.
Oh, okay. I
Yep.
get you.
Yep.
Metro. Sure.
Right on the line. Any questions for Wes?
District 6 has always been kind of difficult for City of Cannon Falls to deal with. I do want to thank you, Wes,
Whatever.
thinking streets. Wes, for you really looking in depth for this. We need more of that, and it's nice to see a staff member really dig in and get at it, so thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, it just jumped out at me. So I was like, yeah,
No, it
we
makes
need to look
perfect
at
sense.
this.
That
So
was great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Wes. Do I have a motion to approve the snow removal agreement with the MnDOT?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Second, Morris?
Yep.
Motion by Bill and second by Morris to approve Resolution 2450, approving a cooperative snow removal agreement with MnDOT. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, reports. Chamber of Commerce, Kyle?
Good evening, my mayor and council members. The biggest event that the chamber has going on right now is Deck the Falls. It is going to be on Saturday, November 30th, along with Small Business Saturday. And so a large number of our retail, restaurant, food businesses are participating in having open houses, specials, and working together. I mean, we have one store that if you bring in a receipt from another business in Cannon Falls, she's going to give you a discount. So they're trying to work together to get the partnership of helping each other get the customers back and forth. So I think that is a very, very good idea. We also have new items added, such as St. Pius is doing a scavenger hunt. And they have 11 participating businesses. The children will go to St. Pius lower level to pick up their passport. Then they go around the downtown area to get them stamped. And when they're filled out, they bring them back to St. Pius. Those who are finishing them will be awarded prizes. And then St. Pius is also showing, and this is for everyone, the movie Elf at 7 p.m. And they will have popcorn and snacks. Then we have, Cannon River Senior Living. Gave me a call earlier this week, later last week, there we go. They are having a holiday open house from 11 to 3 on Saturday the 30th. They also have 30 vendors for their craft fair. And so the Deck the Falls used to have a craft fair that was held out at the school. Now it's going to be at Cannon River Senior Living from 11 to 3. So that's a great addition. Of course, Don's Crumble Beef Sandwich Truck will be by Tillian's that whole day, noon to 9. And so check that out. Variety of sandwiches, and of course his crumbled beef sandwich. And don't forget the sleigh rides in Hannah's Bend. That's being sponsored by Merchants Bank, and that is from 1 to 4. On to the parade. Right now, we are just under 20 units, and so we'd love to have more units in the parade. If anyone in the community is interested, just call the chamber office, 507-263-2289. It's a free parade. We just need to know you want to come, and we can get you in the lineup. Then we are adding, or we are hoping to add, fireworks at the end of the lighting of the Christmas tree. And what has taken us the most time is to get the sponsorships to pay for the $3,500 worth of fireworks. And we've exceeded that. So I want to really thank the businesses in our community who opened up their pocketbooks and really helped us out. So now I ask the council if it's going to be okay to have fireworks after the lighting of the Christmas tree, as well as shooting them off from John Birch Park. And Chad Stevers is the same pyrotechnician contractor that the fair uses. And so he was very happy, gave us a great price to come down in November. He's not very busy. And so in looking at the map of the area, he thinks the safest place is going to be John Birch Park, and sending them over the river, and that distance between the fireworks going off and over the river will be enough so that they won't get all the way to the people. And so he's got that safety caution in mind. And so that's,
Have you
That
got,
is-
is there, you have enough time to get a fireworks permit?
I signed off on it today, and then it would go to the city administrator. The location, I don't think will be problematic. If you recall, I don't know, maybe half dozen years or so ago, we did fireworks in the field
Yeah, I remember
across
that. I
from,
remember that now, yeah.
and that didn't present any problems to any of the properties adjacent to it as far as any unexploded falling.
Okay.
So you'd like a motion from the council to approve that?
yes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the fireworks.
Yeah, I'll second.
Any discussion?
Does that include shooting them off at the Birch Park?
Everything you've
John
asked
Birch Park.
for.
Wherever,
Okay.
yeah, whatever.
Where will you be asking people to, where do you think will be the best spot to sit and watch the fireworks?
Wait from the.
Actually, the majority of the people are going to be at the ceremony where we give away $900 worth of chamber dollars. We also, introduce Santa Claus. And then we start the countdown for the Christmas tree to light. And I mean, it'll be right after the lighting of the tree.
You don't
They'll
want
be coming over.
any people down by the tree, or?
Preferably, well, they have to stay on this side of the river.
Yeah, most people will be in the city
The
park.
east side of the river would be the safe
it.
zone.
City
I think
parking
that
lot.
we will
Yeah.
end up placing barricades or something on the west side to keep people off that walking path during
Yeah.
the
That would
the
be way
fireworks.
Too close.
too close.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Great.
All right. We also have the contract from,
Yeah.
Oh,
All
Thank
in
you.
favor of the motion for fireworks?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
thank you very much. I do appreciate your support, and I hope to see you all doing something.
Kyle,
Yes.
one question for you. Wasn't the sling on the other arm at the last meeting?
It's soon to be off, so hopefully this week, and I'll be free of it. Thank you, Steve.
Yes.
Okay, East Side 2 project, Ohio Street drainage and SCH invoices. Greg.
You got a whole update from me since it's been so long since I've been here, right? All right. So we'll follow your list there. East Side 2 project is done. We've gone through the punch list with the contractor. Everything's wrapped up on there with the exception of the driveway at the top of the hill on Mill Street. The property owner was in last fall to the Public Works Commission and asked about it, and it's kind of steep. If anyone's been up Mill Street, and then the driveway goes up from there. What I think happened is before the project, his driveway kind of was paved out into the cul-de-sac a little bit, maybe a little bit of a ramp there. Now we've got curb all the way around the cul-de-sac. He's got to go down and then back up into the driveway. Now, a portion of his driveway was replaced as part of the project because we had to put in curb and do some work behind it. That portion is a little bit steeper than it was before, but above that, portions of his driveway are even steeper than what we replaced. Now, I had not heard from him before Mike had left. He had not heard back from the owner if they're able to drive up the driveway now without any issues. One side is not as steep as the other, surprisingly, if you look at it. So that is the one outstanding issue. We had a couple trees on the list. One got replaced. One is kind of under the watch category, if you will. We have a warranty on those. The tree guy will be back in the spring. If they don't leaf out, we'll get them replaced, and we'll start to clock over on the trees. So I guess my thought on the east side too is maybe I'll run through it quick with Wes. I would probably come next month with another pay app, getting us all up to date with the contractors. A few, not a lot of outstanding bills on it, just a few, just to get him to zero. Maybe we reduce the retainage pretty much to maybe a half or 1%, and then maybe Public Works will want to discuss that driveway. And if we need to take action, we could do it again in the spring. But that's kind of my thought on east side too and where we're at. I've not had any other thing come up on the project other than just a contractor dragging his feet, filling out the last few things, sprinkler items and a couple outstanding invoices. And the one tree, like we replaced one, there's a bigger one down at Almond and Grove we're gonna watch. He thought it looked pretty good, he wanted to give it some time. So again, those have a 2-year warranty on the trees. So if one doesn't, or if you don't come back in the spring, we can get them replaced.
I guess if we haven't heard from that guy with his driveway by now, it's probably okay.
Well, as we discussed it once in Public Works, it was a very similar situation to my own personal driveway where if you don't turn just right as you back out, you're gonna bang the bottom of your car. He has that same issue. Sometimes you gotta learn to live with it too.
I'm surprised they were able to transverse that in the winter. I don't know how he even shovels the snow or plows it, to be honest with you. Following your list there, Ohio Street drainage, another project that came from Public Works. There we go. All right, so this is an aerial of the area. The homeowner down here on Ohio Street, anybody's been down in Ohio between 4th and 5th, the malting plant's over here. We have the county road coming from City Hall, and then the green lot across from the gas station, Canon Equipment up here. Homeowners down here on Ohio Street came to Public Works this summer and said, hey, I got water standing around my garage, standing around my sheds. Well, he is in a low area. If anyone's driven Ohio Street there by Gibson Sanitation's old building, you know that it's a low point, and that's where the water stands. Looked through some of the stuff I'd had on file because this open spot across from the gas station has several times been looked at as a development, at least twice. I had a little bit of survey information, but not enough all the way down to these houses or all the way up to the flared end. So what happens here is it somewhat drains overland behind the gas station, and there's a flared end that takes the water into the storm sewer system that runs down 17 into the Amesbury Pond. Okay? Was not able, working with the surveyor and the engineer that did these projects, finally wasn't able to get the shots I needed, so talked to Dave. We sent a survey crew out here last month, shot the information around the houses down in Ohio, took some shots on the alley, and picked up the flared end to see. So the blue line represents basically the alley. There's a platted 16-foot alley there between Ohio and Washington, and you can kind of see going north of Washington, there's an alley there that's platted. A lot of times in these older parts of town, alleys were platted, whether they were improved or not, it's hard to say. But there's 16 feet there that is platted as an alley from Ohio all the way up. The survey showed that there is 2 feet of fall from the lowest elevation down here by the shed to this flared end, but it's over 800 feet from here to there. Doing the math, that's barely over flat, if you will, to get there, okay? It's less than half of what we would like to see a swale graded, and even if we were to grade it that well, you'd probably have pockets that would hold water, and it would just because you're, grading to that flat of a grade with equipment is just difficult. So a couple of options, you saw the email Dave forwarded you was, well, we could do this and just maybe move the water a little farther north, or we could regrade maybe a portion of this 16-foot alley deeper so it actually holds water, so the water doesn't sit here. But on the large events, are we even able to hold enough water? Because again, we only have 16 feet to work with right here, unless we wanted to push that farther north. That may be even less than a short-term fix, in my opinion. Another thought would be to do a pond. As I mentioned, the developer that looked at this site twice was talking to the head, we'll have to do some sort of retention whenever something's built there, because it's all green space now. If you look, St. Clair Street extended, used to go all the way to 4th. The south half of it is vacated, but is covered by a drainage and utility easement because we have a water main through there. So there's 30 feet the city owns, kind of where the blue oval is, that the city has a drainage and utility easement over that could possibly use to maybe regrade an alley, put in a little bit of a pond to hold the water. Again, we're dealing with maybe 30 feet here and 16 there. Probably not enough to make a significant difference. It's possible maybe to partner if this developer ever came back in again. Or like the third bullet I had in the email was, well, maybe we wait because Ohio Street, along with 4th, and some of the streets over here are part of one of the outstanding projects yet to do on the city's list. Now, getting the stormwater out of here is probably going to be a bit of a challenge because it's either going to have to go north and down the storm sewer down the county road, which, is it the county's pipe? Is it the city's pipe? We'll have to cross that bridge. That ultimately goes to the Amesbury Pond, which presents its own challenges with the Amesbury loading dock and the outlet to the river. The other option potentially would be to take the water south, but now we're crossing railroad tracks. We probably have to deal with rock. We've got to go along Cannon Street, and the storm sewer at Cannon and 3rd just kind of dumps on the street and then gets back in the pipe by Rob Bistro and then runs into the river. There again, that's going to present some challenges, but that could be part of a bigger street project in that neighborhood if you wanted to wait. So unfortunately, it's not as easy as maybe just grading a little bit of that alley to get the water further away without maybe sending it somewhere else that isn't going to really help us.
I'm looking at the cost of that drainage ditch, or what, approximately what would it cost?
Well, just to,
this problem would be fixed when we do the street project, probably Ohio Street and.
Right. Ohio Street right now is essentially a little, bituminous surface that's kind of busted up. There's no curb, there's no storm sewer. This is obviously the low point of the entire neighborhood. It takes a lot of surface area from the commercial industrial area here and from Gibson's from the south. That seems to be the low point, and water finds the low point, and we'll have to get it out of there, but it's not an easy fix right now.
If on the street project, you're still thinking about sending the water north to go eventually to Amesbury, right? What would you do different, or if it's that flat? What could you do?
Part of what we would look at would be, what's the capacity of that storm sewer up there now? Could we send some, but not all of this water without overtaxing the existing pipe?
But what you said is it's almost flat now. How are you going to send it eventually and you can't do it now?
Well, we could set the pipe flatter, because that's got a more true surface than grading the ditch. We can set the pipe fairly flat, and maybe we chase the storm sewer across and pick up some grade. I don't know. Maybe there's a couple structures in here and there's more grade in the pipe once you get up there. Or we chase it around a little farther. That's an option. But again, we could set the pipe flatter, maybe a bigger pipe set at a flatter grade. That's going to have more consistent surface than the ditch would. And so that's an option. Part of that might include doing some ponding here or somewhere to maybe hold the water for a period of time and then have it outlet to the north.
It sounds like it being very flat is a problem, right? Big
Yes.
problem.
Yeah.
So could we build a hill? No, I'm kidding. Wow, I don't know.
What can we
Easy
do
to say
now?
wait, but not if you live there.
In the street project, if you were to do it, could you pick up Ohio 2 feet, curb and gutter it, and have going down into their garages with curb and gutter and run it north with a better grade?
We could lift Ohio Street, and in fact, if we put curb on there, it's going to impact their driveways, but they're still going to be below the street. that would keep the street water in the street and into the storm sewer, but it's still going to present a few challenges with their driveway and just the fact that their buildings are already low. But that is a way to kind of reduce some of the water getting there, because a lot of the water, I think, comes from the east and comes down Ohio Street around the corner this way or from the south. And as Wes was saying, if we put curb and gutter on Ohio and some storm sewer structures, we can catch this water before it gets down there, reducing quite a bit of what gets there, not eliminating the problem around his garages and his shed, but get that water into a pipe, whether we tie that into MnDOT's system or we take it north. Now, the other contributing factor is MnDOT has some storm sewer in Fifth Street, but they daylight it right here into the city's drainage and utility easement, adding more water to go to the north. So that's why I said maybe an option is taking some of this water south. Probably not east, they deal with west, they got to deal with the railroad tracks and MnDOT, but those look to be the two options, and they're not going to be easy, either one of them. But Wes has got a good point. If once Ohio Street is put in with curb and gutter and storm sewer, that's going to reduce a lot of the water going there now.
Do you think the rest of the water that you're talking about comes from the rooftop and the parking lot and all that right there in the industrial area? Or where do you think all that water is coming from that settles in that area?
I'm thinking a majority of it, having not been out there when it rains, my guess is a lot of it comes from the east here and just flows this way. Not a lot from the west, just because I think the tracks are kind of a high point here. And there's some ditches along MnDOT's road that go towards the river. But there is a low point on this side of the blacktop behind Gibson's old garage, and then the other low point is right over here. I think a majority of the water comes from the east and all that hard surface.
Is there anything we can do to try to cut that water off on 4th Street? I know that then it runs into the parking lot, but to try before it gets into the yard?
That's an option too. Try to catch some of the water ahead of time before it gets there. Do some sort of retainage, but we'll need a positive outlet for that at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
It's gonna go somewhere.
But heading it off before it all gets there is a good idea.
I don't know when that street project's gonna happen. It's not gonna be next year.
Right. And the one thing we did find with the survey is there's some fences and stuff in this alley. So in order to do anything in there, we're going to have to move some fences and work with the property owners at whatever point we end up doing something in that area.
Oh, a simple solution here.
No, there is.
Is there any options at all without doing the street project now to alleviate their issues that they're having right now?
We could go in and grade a portion of this blue north of his shed. We have to take the fences out. I don't know, the shed may or may not be in the alley. We could grade a portion of it, making it lower, creating a low area for that water to sit. But if anyone's been back here behind the parking lot, it's pretty steep off that parking lot now. And while we can get the water to stand over here instead of over here by the garage and the shed, it's not going to get all the way out. And sooner or later, it's going to start coming back this way, depending on the rain event, depending on the snow event. It'd be a fix, but not much of one, is my concern. And if we go in and do something, there's going to be some expectation there that it's not going to be a problem or it's going to resolve it all. And doing something that doesn't work most of the time.
Greg, did they give you a sense as to whether or not this is something that happened this year? I mean, everybody had a lot of rain this year. Was it just this year, or has it been happening?
No, I think given the lay of the land, there's water there quite often when it rains, just because these two, the two lowest points in the whole area were on each side of Ohio Street, right in the middle of the block.
Okay.
Now,
I was just wondering.
they probably had it happen more often this year.
Right.
Or in the last few years.
Kind of like we had that thing up by my house.
Yeah, amplified this year.
Yikes. Everything just took on a new.
North of those, though, down in that other land, that does catch a lot of water down there.
Yes, as I mentioned, part of MnDOT's storm sewer dumps out like this and then adds to it. And I don't know if I've ever seen or heard water standing here. Now, grading up on this end is going to require some trees coming out because there's some trees in the alley up there. But there is a lot of water that gets north and goes into that storm sewer.
Well, of your 3 points here, what do you recommend?
Well, not knowing the timeline of a street project, I mean, my first choice would be to include it with the street project, but that just may be quite a ways to wait. Because there's just a lot of dominoes here. If we do a couple of things, what's the impact of it? Are we spending money that we're gonna tear up in 3 years? Like I said in the first bullet, you could grade some of this alley, and maybe on the bigger events, maybe get some of the water away from the garages, but it's not gonna alleviate the problem all the time.
Has any residents complained about water getting in their house right now?
Yes.
That's where it started, was with the one on Ohio
With Jim
Street.
Hernke.
Jim Hernke.
Yeah.
I mean, with respect to the timing of a street project, maybe you reach out to the owner of that empty space, see if they've got another plan to come back. Maybe you could couple something with them, put in a little deeper pond that's got a few feet of freeboard to the low area. But if they don't have anything in mind, I mean, they're gonna have to do some ponding. The city's got a little bit of room there with the drainage and utility easement on the north end of their lot. Maybe there's something that could work there to help both parties.
Temporary fix.
Problem is you hate to pay money twice.
Yeah.
Are we expected to take action tonight, or this is just information?
Just kind of an update since we haven't met at Public Works, and I know Mr. Gesme's been wondering about it, and I was trying to get by with using the information we already had, and I just didn't have all the shots I was comfortable looking at and making the comments on, so.
Be on the agenda at Public Works.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
What else is on your list, Mr. Mayor?
I had a question, SEA invoices. About a month ago, we got the East Side 2 project or something, and there wasn't a breakdown there. It was like $6,400 or something like that.
So we do invoices a couple different ways for the city, and actually a lot of the cities I do city engineering in is we'll have a city engineer or a miscellaneous engineering number. So like this drainage issue, Dave or Public Works says, go out and look at this. I'll put the time on there with a description, Ohio Street drainage, bike trail, what have you. Public Works or staff gets that, and we also have different tasks under that number. If it's telecom, if it's water, sewer, street, miscellaneous, then they can code it internally. When we do a street job, like East Side, like Alexander Court, we do more of here's the people that worked on it, and here's the bill for the month, because it's directly related to that project. We could break them out more if that's something you'd like to do for the different projects. We typically only do that on the miscellaneous engineering because it could be anything from, water tower visit to the bike trail view or backyard drainage issue. So that's kind of how we do it, and we can add or take away stuff, whatever the client wants to see on those, but we do have 2 separate invoices depending on what type of project it is. One for just general engineering work as directed by staff or council, and on those we have very detailed who it was, dates, hours, what they did, looked at, so staff can code it correctly here if it gets a pass-through for a developer or a telecom, or if it needs to go in the water or the sewer fund, then they can put it there. When it's a street job or a specific project, big project, Alexander Court street job, then we just have straight who it was, the hours they worked, and sum that up for the month.
I guess my concern was, there was up by the high school at Cul-de-sac had to be redone. And then I was told by staff that, things like that are built into the bid to correct, when it happens, so,
Yeah, we can talk a little more on the cul-de-sac if you'd like. Just a quick update on the street project. We're probably going to be $200,000 under budget on that. 3.2 was a low bid. We're going to be right about $3 million with the contractor's cost when we're all said and done. We did have to move 2 catch basins and a hydrant because of the cul-de-sac, but that was really the only issue we had on the project, all told, on that project that size. So, just a quick, just give 5 minutes on that cul-de-sac if you don't mind. Here's what it looked like up there before we started. Here's the field house, parking lot, Minnesota Street, and then this is the driveway parking lot to the back of staff or whoever parks back there. And this entrance is kind of used more for athletics as a back entrance. And when we were putting the plans back together, our plan was just put the curb and gutter back in and tie into the parking lot on both sides here and redo the pavement. We had to go back to this manhole right here. This dark spot's the sanitary manhole that serves the school. We had to go back to that point and to a point in this area to tie into the water and also the storm sewer. There's some catch basin here, up here that takes some of the drainage. When we were working on the plans, the school came and said, hey, we would like you to consider closing Minnesota Street, cul-de-sac, barricades. We went through that whole deal. Their issue was they had so many conflicts with cars coming this way and dropping kids off. I believe the carpool is really out in front of the school, correct? They'd have people either short-circuiting that, coming up Minnesota. You've got the kids walking from the parking lot. You've got the walkers from the neighborhood coming on the sidewalk, across these crosswalks. They just had so many conflicts here, they wanted to close the street. So we put the cul-de-sac in.
And we agreed to split the difference with the school on the project.
Yep. So we put the cul-de-sac in, got the project bid, and I'd sent the plans to the school, and they said, oh, yeah, looks good. So if you can remember now, here's the north sidewalk of Minnesota to the building. The parking lot sits here. Here's that little island knob of the curb. We were going to just bring that around with new curb to tie into the knob here. Go over to the storm sewer. Here's that sanitary manhole we had to go back to. Storm sewer. And then we tipped the cul-de-sac to the south so we wouldn't have to deal with the change the sidewalk or the curb line on the north side of Minnesota. Well, it clipped, this corner is actually the school property. This is the old, I believe, the armory site parcel. Yeah. So if you look, this area and this area is all right-of-way, and going north is what was Bluff Street, okay? In the 50s, this was the city limit line, and the council at that time vacated everything on Minnesota east of Bluff. But before the field house project, you remember Minnesota went all the way past the school over to here. Okay, so the city was plowing it and doing everything on that street well into what was school property. So the school board asked, you know, we don't want to get into an easement. We don't want to get into issues with having that little corner of the parking of the cul-de-sac on our property. What can we do? So we tilted, but this was while the project was going on. We'd installed these two catch basins and we'd installed a hydrant over here, because you got to do the underground work before we do the street work. And since they had some concerns about the cul-de-sac, we decided not to do any of the curb from about mid-block this way. We had started putting the street back together over here, but we held off because we didn't want to do the curb twice around the cul-de-sac. So this is what is done now. Okay, you can see the cross the sidewalk on the north side. There's the parking lot and see the parking stalls. So now the curb has a little different curve to it and then this is all paved. It's still a school area. The green space, the cul-de-sac is centered in the 80-foot Minnesota Street right-of-way and ends just before the east edge of the old Bluff Street right-of-way. The city has water main that runs north up here towards Public Works. There's a power line in there. This is still considered Bluff Street. And this is the corner of the school property. So now the cul-de-sac is completely in there, but we had to move the hydrant. This dark spot with a little bow tie is the hydrant. And then we had to move these two catch basins. So this is what got built. The school, actually, as we were going through the whole process, they were going to lose a few stalls. They thought, well, it's not the end of the world, 5, 7 stalls. At the end of the day, they probably gained 7 or more stalls because the parking lot goes all the way to here now.
Yeah.
Right.
That answers my questions.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, EDA. Dave, you want to give us an update?
The primary conversation by EDA last week pertained to the joint effort of the Economic Development Authority and Cannon Falls Economic Initiatives, the private development corporation in Cannon Falls, to come together and work out a plan to finance and clean up and redevelop the former Cannonball building and site on the south side of Cannon Falls. The EDA has worked and participated with Cannon Falls Economic Initiatives in the past on various projects, and we coordinate our efforts respectfully. But this is a project that really has evolved into and will continue to evolve into a more of a formalized partnership where Economic Development Authority and Cannon Falls Economic Initiatives have both agreed to ante up to $150,000 each to pay for some additional environmental assessment on the Cannonball site, to remove 5 more underground tanks, storage tank facilities at the Cannonball site, and to investigate, evaluate asbestos conditions in the building, and really do a building assessment to really know what's in there so that we can take a quote and a bid for demolishing and removing that building. So both parties have agreed to participate up to $150,000 of capital each. There's about $100,000 roughly contract for the first phase, which removes those remaining 5 tanks, does some additional environmental assessment, completes the asbestos abatement evaluation of the building, and gets then us into a better understanding of what really are we looking at in terms of total investment to clean this site up for redevelopment. So the EDA and Economic Initiatives are both on board. We're working with Attorney Burkhardt to put together a very brief, hopefully short agreement between the two parties. We, as an Economic Development Authority, can receive this property from Goodhue County, who's the custodian of the tax forfeit piece of real estate there. We can receive that as an EDA, but it cannot be transferred to Economic Initiatives as a private development or private developer. In addition to EDA Economic Initiatives, Commissioner Anderson is attending our meetings. We've opened up communications with Goodhue County staff. Again, they're the custodians of the property, and under state law, we have the right as a city to purchase that property for something less than market value under certain conditions, and we just want to be assured, Economic Development Authority and Cannon Falls Economic Initiatives, we want to be assured that as we move forward, even in this first phase of spending $100,000 to clean this property up, that we won't be denied the ability to purchase that property when it is all cleaned up for the sum of $1. So kudos to Brad Anderson, who's agreed to participate with us and is kind of keeping the communication going between the county and the EDA and Economic Initiatives in this effort. So that was probably the single most significant conversation by the EDA at last week's meeting, but we're moving forward definitely, and I think the representatives of the EDA who are sitting on this group as well as Economic Initiatives are both confident that we're going to find a way to get this property cleaned up and redeveloped, and hopefully a different land use will replace this sometime hopefully next year. So that was probably the main issue. The other thing we talked about, I'll just briefly, and John and Morris can add whatever they choose to, but we also talked about the Blandon projects. And one of the Blandon projects I think some of you have participated in or heard about, and that is there's been some training for the use of social media, website development, et cetera. How can businesses better use broadband opportunities to promote and expand their businesses? And through the Blandon grant that we've received, we're working on a program now where the Blandon grants, along with a forgivable loan participation by the Economic Development Authority, would be put together as financial incentive to businesses, and along with their private investment of capital, we're able to finance some technical assistance on a business-by-business basis. And I think that's a pretty exciting development with the Economic Development Authority and Blandon, and we'll look forward to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 business participations, hopefully in 2020, that use a combination of the Blandon grant funds, EDA forgivable loan funds, and the private business's own capital to purchase some assistance that will be designed to really help them expand or improve their use of broadband for marketing and growing their businesses. So that was probably the second most significant item talked about.
The Blandon Group, how was it now? They've done this, in other communities, and the ones that took advantage of it, their businesses just shot up. I mean, it'd be like networking, just everything under the sun, and it's a great thing for this town.
We know Kyle's still here. Laura Qualley, on behalf of the Blandon program, has done some training with businesses, with senior citizens, with some nonprofits in the community as a volunteer, and that's been super. helpful for those who have received that training. But we see this next move as really notching it up quite a bit to provide, I think, a very strong financial incentive for businesses who are in need and who are interested in exploring this and having some one-time financing in all likelihood, available to them. So we're pretty excited about that as an EDA, and we'll continue to move that forward, and obviously work closely with Kyle and the Chamber on this effort as well.
Back to Cannonball, I'm really enthused with what's going on there. Like I say, Brad Anderson was working with the economic initiatives and EDA, and we can get something going there, then develop that site. That'll be a major factor on the south end. I'm looking forward to it.
Cannonball is about 3 acres. So, it's sizable.
There has been a few developers
Yeah.
expressed interest in it already, so.
I know the kids want a Taco Bell. I've heard it at school, Taco Bell.
I agree with you. I'll second that, Taco.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Okay, then we should maybe talk about our work session with Semcra on Goodhue County on Sandstone.
Yeah. You all attended, so I don't have to give much of a report here.
I'll add to it.
But I have communicated again with Buffy since the meeting, and they're moving forward with kind of getting some parameters on the conversation that you all participated in last week. So we'll get some kind of meat on the bones and some probably in the form of a memorandum of understanding about what the multi-county HRA, Goodhue County, and us will do together to kind of take a step forward to kind of cleaning up at least the legal mess at Sandstone Ridge. That's step number one. Once that's done, in conjunction with a land use plan that ultimately has to be adopted by the Goodhue County Board of Commissioners, we'll have kind of a vision of what opportunities might exist for alternative land use on that site. We know the soils are bad. We know it's significantly expensive and probably economically unfeasible to do much of any kind of development on that site, so it remains to be seen, where we'll end up there. But it is encouraging to see that the multi-county HRA in Goodhue County will work with us to, I think, help clean up at least the legal troubles that we have on that property. So I'm expecting that in all likelihood, maybe as soon as December 3rd, that we'll have something back from the multi-county HRA as a follow-up to our workshop.
We're cleaning up the titles, getting it all set, and then it'll be back in our hands to do what we want to do with it. We're going to rename it, too. It's not going to be Sandstone anymore, guarantee you. Okay, any other discussion on that?
It's good.
Okay, let's go around the horn. Anything, Greg, anything else you want to bring up? You smoking up tonight? Wes? Nothing. Nicole?
I'll give you some updates about the library. I did get an application for a county resident for the library board, so that will be on the agenda for the next meeting for appointment. But we are still looking for a city resident to have a full board. And then, yay! And there will not be a library board meeting in December. So you won't be getting any reports on a meeting that doesn't exist. Stop into the library during Deck the Falls because Santa is going to do the story time at 2 o'clock, between 2 and 2:30. This coming Saturday from 11 to 1, I have River Bluff Humane Society coming to do a donation drive for things for the Humane Society, but also a pet adoption event. So you can come pet some dogs. So it's going to be in the meeting room at the library, and I think that's a goodwill thing since we don't have Humane Society here in town. We will be closed on Thanksgiving and Black Friday. And we aren't really going to have a lot of programs in December. A lot of people are really busy with the holidays, so we're just going to kind of chill out a little bit for this month. But then just looking ahead, the Library Foundation has graciously agreed to fund hotspots that the library will loan out starting in 2020. Last night, the library board approved our policy, and now I have to get the hotspots, and we have to get them all processed so they'll be ready to loan. But this is my first official announcement that it will be happening in January at some point. So find out from me later after we've got them. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor. Kyle actually covered our big event coming up pretty well, which will be on the 30th. It will not involve parking restrictions on 4th Street, so seniors can come down, park on the street, and be able to watch the parade. The fireworks will put some restrictions in place on the west side of the river, but we'll work with the chamber as their details firm up and Public Works to ensure that the fireworks are done in a safe manner. That's all we have.
Thank you. Linnell? Dave?
If you look at the upcoming meeting schedule, the Planning Commission is going to be meeting on December 9th. And for your information, we've received an application from Casey's. They're moving forward to acquire the former Dammer building to the east and looking to expand additional gas pumps, parking area, and maneuverability through their site. So in order for them to do that, they've got an issue. We previously issued a conditional use permit when they first built there, and this will be an amendment to that permit. So that'll be coming up for public hearing on December 9th. I too want to just thank John for sharing his time with interviewing the 7 candidates for the maintenance 2 position. It's a lot of time involved with that. I think it ended up to be a great decision, and appreciate John helping out. And also to Wes for really bringing to my attention as well the MnDOT issue and spending the time and effort to really get an agreement that represents the efforts that they're providing on behalf or for MnDOT in this case and getting reimbursed for that. So thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Steve?
Nothing.
Matt?
Nothing.
Bill?
Nothing.
Derek?
Nothing tonight.
Mary Jo?
Nope.
Nope. Morris? Really got nothing to add. Everything I had has been covered tonight, so. Remember Deck the Falls will be a last meeting before that, coming up Saturday the 30th. We'll see you all there, fireworks and all, so. With that, we'll open it up to public input. Citizens may speak to issues not on the agenda. Before speaking, please give your name and address for the record, and kindly limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comments must be respectful, pertinent to city business, and adhere to applicable data privacy rules. The City Council will not take action on any issue raised by the public, but may choose to schedule consideration of the item on a future agenda. Anybody would like to talk at public input? Brenda?
Brenda Voshalik, 408 Oak Street North. I've listened to you talk a lot about how you're going to deal with your budget. And it seemed to me it parallels a story that I think most of us at one time or another heard during our high school years. And I'll go back to Shirley Jackson and the lottery. And most of you remember it's a story about a lottery that takes place yearly. And at the end of that lottery, a family is chosen. And one member of that family is stoned to death. And the reason for that is so that the rest of the town has good crops that year. And it seems to me that we're deciding our budget on a lottery. And this year, we chose the police department. And instead of one, we're going to take 2 unlucky souls. And in our lottery, those unlucky souls will lose their jobs. so that our city will have enough money to prosper. And we decide that by how much money they make. And then next year, do we have another lottery and choose which department is going to make the sacrifice? And which two members of that department make enough money? On whose backs the city will decide? That they can choose? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Anybody else, public input?
Sam Jennings, 604 Almond Street. Just going back to what she just reiterated about sacrificing. You're sacrificing public safety by getting rid of these positions. Many of you on the council have said you wear your hearts on your sleeve. Are you going to wear your heart on your sleeve when somebody ends up passed away because you didn't have the resources able to help somebody? It really does boil down to sacrificing public safety to save a buck. It's been brought up that most people in this community don't want to see anybody leave. You are sacrificing public safety. Let me just reiterate that. You're sacrificing public safety to save money. Whenever you sacrifice public safety for things like that, you're not going to get that back. Those jobs don't come back. You're going to be downsizing a department that does a really good job. We have a really safe community because of the work these officers do. You are sacrificing public safety, and this community does not want to sacrifice public safety. This community wants fiscal responsibility from all of you sitting up there, from people in each department, fiscal responsibility. There's been issues with fiscal responsibility in the past, and it is finally catching up. And to go to public safety to make up for the lapses in fiscal responsibility is just kind of disgusting, actually. So just think about that. Think about if somebody dies because we don't have somebody on staff, how you're going to feel about that if you wear your heart on your sleeve. Because it really does boil down to that, the cut and dry black and white of it all. There are people behind the scenes that do things that you don't realize. The second thing would be lawsuits and things like that. Some of the people, there's a police union for a reason. The city, I don't know about, if you don't have money for officers, how much money do you have for legal fees for fighting lawsuits and things like that? Union reps are there for a reason to protect people. And there are protections for people like that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Peters, 700 West State Street. I'm on the opposite side. You guys were all voted in to represent us as a community. And when you need to make cuts, things happen. It's called life. Sometimes we don't always get what we want. Sometimes people lose their job. That's the way it goes. I'm sure many of us have come into that in our lives. And it's not an easy decision to make, but it is a decision that has to be made. If you look at the other towns, and we're talking over $500,000 difference, I see that as a problem. I do a pretty good job at policing this town. I can tell you where to go and where not to go. I've been in the game. I know the game. We don't have Captain America in this town to save us from all of the bad stuff, because there is no bad stuff in this town. Few little bad eggs. Other than that, this town's pretty respectful to each other. We can say hi. Yeah, we all have different opinions. That's also life. And I just want you guys to know that all you guys were voted in, and I'm sure you've heard stories from both sides. But to me, it's time to trim the fat.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Josh Witt, 112 Main. All of you were voted in to represent the city, as Adam said. I've read that city council members are receiving calls 10-1 in favor of keeping the police department as is. That seems to be the opinion of the city. I have actually heard very few comments myself. I'd like to know who else is not in favor of cutting the police department, besides a few personal agendas on the city council. You say you don't want officers off the street. If you take people out of administration, who's going to do that work? Well, the officers on the street, they will not be on the street as much as you say or think they will be. Let's look at the management of the police department. I see what seems to be a fully staffed police department. Not a lot of turnover, and I don't see any vacancies. But let's compare that to the rest of the city. I see vacancies, I see a lot of turnover. Seems to me Jeff is doing a pretty good job of managing the police department, better than the city in general. Looking at the discussion of the comp cities that were chosen for comps for Cannon Falls, they look a little cherry picked to me. You can adjust your thresholds and your ranges to pick cities you'd like to come up with stats that fit your agenda. It seems to be what's happening to me. I presented some stats last time. I didn't cherry pick those. I left them as the BCA left them, and my stats do not line up with what Dave Maroney presented. While Cannon Falls might be a little higher than some other cities, we're certainly not at the top. We're actually very average for police department cost. So with that, you're elected to represent the city. I've seen an overwhelming response at the city council meetings, and I've heard that there was an overwhelming response in emails and phone calls to you. Let's do the right thing and leave it as is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public input.
Nick King, 412 East Mill. I was just wondering, what is the tax levy amount? Do you guys know what it's going to be? Just out of curiosity. If you don't know what it is, you're just yo-yoing around, like you don't know what it is. There's really no reason to cut the police department. You're doing it for a personal reason and not for a strategic planning, and that's pretty much the bottom line. And I'd appreciate if the harassment would stop my fellow employees.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
No way.
Anybody else? Public input. Public input. Third and final call, public input. Hearing none, we'll close the public input portion of the meeting. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Second by Morris. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll take a 10-minute break and we'll start the work session.